looking at? Incoming transmission from Podfleet Command on screen. Welcome to the 8th episode of Trek Geeks Picard Live. Coming to you from an incredibly Dutch angle, my name is Barry DeFord, and I will be your inner light of remembrance while we look back at the episode 8 of Star Trek Picard, which was titled Broken Pieces. If the internet drops, which it already did when we were in the green room, we have the EBH to help, thanks to my lovely and talented EBH Dan Garcia from the Trek Geeks Game Night. And this show is streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, and now also available on trekgeeks.com. Picard Live is proud to have Fansets as our presenting sponsor, and we'll have some more information about them later, including the special discount code just for viewers and listeners of this broadcast. Just to let you know again, my angle is a little bit on the wonky side, but that's because I had to put this up a little bit fast. Just with the current situation with COVID-19, the school board that I am a part of has just declared that students are no longer to come to school. So my evening got a little bit wacky pretty fast there. So apologies for the weird angle, but this is how fast I can put up things, and you just get a better view of this lovely TNG uniform. And if you are listening to this podcast a little bit later on, it won't matter at all because you can't see me. So let's get on to it with a little bit of a warning that I like to call our spoiler alert. Let's get started right now by warning you all with a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
So you know the drill. At this point, if you have not seen episode 8 of Star Trek Picard, stop now and check out the episode first, then come on back and you can see what we've been talking about and listen to all of those things. But in the meantime, otherwise, I'm not here to tell you what to do. If you want to listen to it anyways, go right ahead, because we've got some cracking commentary going on with it, with what our first segment is called the Picard Maneuver. It's where we reorient ourselves to meet the man who we haven't met in a very, very long time. So the Picard Maneuver is a nice way to just orient ourselves, as they say, to what just happened. So the first part here is all my friends who might say the Our Father in their place of worship at the very, very beginning when Commodore O says, "Our foremothers." I was expecting her to say, "Who art in space." So that's a joke for any of my friends and fellow Trek fans who like the who grew up in church and all that sort of stuff. So the first piece here is we have what takes place on the Grief world, where we see a very disturbing situation take place. And I mean, we can talk about the idea that Narissa makes the cut. Her aunt kind of makes the cut, I guess you could say. And clearly Commodore O has as well. We also figure out why people were harming themselves and doing all that. Apparently, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. I guess maybe the first little piece that I want to talk about regarding that is, remember in 2012 when the Mayan calendar said the world was going to end in 2012? Well, it turns out that was wrong. It's because the calendar ended. It didn't depict the end of the world. That would be like reading the end of a book and determining that everyone died at the end because the book stopped. We wouldn't think the world didn't exist before the Mayan calendar was made. So, I mean, that's a big thing. Also, I think when you look into it deeper, it was actually an Aztec calendar they were talking about anyways. I know a little bit more about Mayan, Chotol, and Tzotzil history from kind of that sort of where the continents narrow into Central America. I don't know as much about Aztec cultures, sadly. But like in all cultures, every group is going to be a product of their condition. And they can't necessarily speak for the entire planet. And I think this is where we see the Romulans are definitely taking on quite a burden by trying to do this on their own. But unfortunately, they hold a monopoly of information. And what if they're wrong? So yes, like I said, Narissa does make the cut. Her aunt unfortunately breaks a Borg cube. And I can sort of understand why. If we think about when Hugh was to be placed back into the collective, this is a similar sort of thing, an algorithm that the Borg wouldn't be able to figure out. There must be some kind of failsafe that disconnects the cube from the rest of the collective if something like this is to happen. The greatest villains also believe they're doing something right. It's a Trek hallmark. O was behind the synth attack. I mean, that's pretty much for sure. And she thinks she's doing the right thing. I also think Narissa thinks she's coming from a good place. Of course, she's using Romulan cunning, and we as humans don't necessarily subscribe to that sort of thing. But I would think that probably your average Romulan was thinking that both of these people were acting in the interests of their own people and for the rest of the galaxy. The admonition scene also has 2 suns. Soji's planet has 2 moons. I wonder if that was on purpose. Rios gets a blast from the past. The brother and sister thing is interesting, though I thought he would have had a longer connection to Janna than was led on at the start. At the same time, I could still see the thing being quite vexing to him, especially considering it completely changed his life. Also, Raffi admonishes Picard for trusting too easily. I think it's fair that she does this, but they get a little too colloquial with the concepts of fact and theory. Of course, if you are a scientist, you understand that facts are theories, like the theory of gravity, which I will test right now. That's a theory. The theory is testable and retestable, making it basically a fact. What they're actually saying is theory or hypothesis. But you know what? I will give them some space for it, though, of course, it did kind of bug me. Girardi clearly does not sound like she was trying to kill herself, which is a bit of a relief. She was actually trying to save the crew. I think that's good. Picard gets his dukes up with Clancy, and she gets another chance to swear at him. But it's on the good end of things, and I think that's great. I do think O is going to kill her, though. That's just my thoughts. Rios also ends up getting to show his acting skills in all of the different fragments of himself, which I think is important. When Elnor basically gets to build some exposition to get Seven back on the cube, and I think that was really great when he continuously asks her questions, and she says, "I can explain or I can steal this cube." I think that's a great shot at Trek-style exposition and conversation that takes place. Sort of feels like she hotwired the Borg cube to some degree. And I think Seven is neat as a queen. She also refers to herself as Annika. I think she sort of represents the reluctant leader in a crisis. And I think the reluctant leader is typically the best. She knows the heart of absolute power, and she's reluctant to take it. I think that's a very bold and good thing of her. So yes, Raffi ends up having a group sesh with all of the Rios holograms, and this really does show the acting panache of the fellow who does that, whose name is suddenly escaping me. Live internet TV, everybody. I just think it's superb producing as well. They really put all that together. I've been somewhat critical of new Star Trek and their producing abilities. I still think they jump from scene to scene a little bit poorly from time to time, but this really shows their chops. There is an expert team behind this series, and they are putting together a very good show. Mad props to the producers. I also find that there's an innocent element to Rios that manifests in the different parts of him and sort of remind me of my own mind. Typically, people say that they have a voice in their head. I don't want to come off as someone crazy, but I don't really think I have a voice. I think I have several perspectives of the same voice. And I think that's kind of what's being manifested in Rios's whole experience here. There are different elements of their character. What if the Zhat Vash got this all wrong? Maybe some risk getting the male synth just gets beautiful flower. I mean, hey, whatever, it's all good. I just think, Petunia, something, I don't know. There's a lot of push and pull that ends this whole episode. A lot of advantage and disadvantage. Tables are turning almost on a dime, much like the broken compass. And the whole show kind of tumbles to the end, producing each story out concurrent, kind of making a linear recap difficult. So all I can really say is that the end of this whole episode sets up a lot of points of convergence. And I think that's really important to understand and consider as we go into what is a 2-part series finale. I'm really sad that it's a 2-part series finale coming up because I've really enjoyed spending my time with everybody. So I'm going to pop over to the comments and say hello to all the folks and people talking. So first off, first comment in, she said, "Hi, looking forward to this interesting episode." I think you're absolutely right. I think my internet might be getting a little bit sketchy as well. My guest a little early. It's been a little wonky today. A lot of good evenings and hellos. Robert that. Great. Kirk Schwinn, I haven't, I think I've seen you before. If not, welcome to the show. It is Jamie McGregor greeting us from isolation. Oh boy, here we go. I do think that the amount of podcasting that's going to go up if podcasters start getting isolated. I haven't been myself, but here we go. Debbie Smart Multisanti, we're on spring break this coming week, but the governor has closed all Florida schools until March 30th. Oh boy, yeah, it's happening. Glad to be watching from the Daystrom Institute in Okinawa, coming from Ali Martinez. Nice to see you, Ali. That is wonderful. So let's see what we've got in terms of this. Arend says that the admonition sounds so ominous. Yeah, they picked a very good name to talk about something absolutely terrifying, I have to say. Someone says science. Bill Smith says science. Yes, hypothesis and theory should be made distinguishable. And I do think that the writers need to answer for that. But you know what? It's all good. Arend also says, I enjoyed Clancy telling Picard STFU. That was not the only one. No, definitely. Becky 2010able says that she loves the Rios holograms as well. I agree. And of course, the holograms are great. The moment that they all smacked themselves in the head simultaneously was fantastic. Helen, you're absolutely right. Again, and that just goes to show, like, for the actor to be able to do that with the same sort of successive blows to his head, plus the producer being able to get every single one done. That's that's the same like difficulty as like trying to thread a needle for me. It's calling me crazy. That's good. Let's see. Oh, yes, I got some rut rows and everything like that. So, you know what, everyone? What we can do in the meantime, then, people on here to talk. So if I disappear, the conversation can continue. So let's get it. Oh, and I'm back. Oh boy, it's really coming and going today, isn't it? All right, so let's get on to the Picard maneuver while I still have internet and introduce our guest. So, of course, like I said, you know, with Picard not being in Starfleet anymore, he's going to make some different choices, all these sorts of things, and we've definitely seen that come and go quite a bit. So with that, I have a wonderful guest to introduce to you all. Her name is Sarah, and she is from Trek Rewind. Welcome to the show, Sarah. I'm going to get you on screen here.
Hello. Hi. How's it going?
Oh, it's going, and that could be my internet as well, as it likes to pop up and down with the silliness of it. But you know, it's all good. So I noticed you brought a friend.
Oh, yeah, he kind of just like creeps up on me sometimes, and I just like spooks me. So yeah, I thought good. You know, it's a fitting time.
Fitting, how fitting, very fitting. I like it.
Yeah.
So yes, Sarah, you're from Trek Rewind. What's that all about? Tell me about your show.
It is a hot mess of fun. It is a newer podcast on the Trek Geeks network, and it's kind of we're spinning off of the See It or Skip It episodes that Trek Geeks would do for the different seasons of Star Trek. So me and my best friend Haley decided to start with season 1 TNG, because that was the show that we grew up on and loved. Like every episode we loved. So when I would listen to those See It and Skip It episodes and they'd be talking smack about really good episodes and saying skip it, I was like, I beg to differ. I think some of these deserve a second chance. Code of Honor aside, never watched that episode, but so Haley and I get together and we rewatch them. A lot of them we hadn't seen since we were little, so it was kind of fun to switch up the perspective now and watch it as an adult. I'm actually finding a lot of things have changed. And then we just kind of reminisce about our travels to Las Vegas for the big convention and just other things like that, and have a hoot and have a couple of cocktails, and it's fun. So if you haven't listened, check it out.
Yeah, I quite enjoy it. It's definitely there's some people who say that swearing doesn't belong in Star Trek, but I disagree. And you both actually do a fine job of making conversation realistic and casual in a way that I do think that, people need to get over it. But anyways, moving on. So a couple of things that I just want to get some initial thoughts from you, Sarah. What do you think of this series so far, and what are you thinking about the episode? Ooh.
honest.
yeah.
I definitely each episode passing. When I did it, 40 episodes, then I'd be very happy. So I find that the last couple episodes were really ramping up for what's going to be the two-parter season finale. This last episode was kind of, I don't know. I had a lot of feelings about this episode. Maybe it kind of changed some of the directions I was going with what I thought about certain characters. So I'm really excited to kind of talk about that more.
No, absolutely. And I guess I think more than anything, more episodes is kind of what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that they want to hear and see and get more of this. And so I think that's, I guess I'm just happy there's more Trek, but at the same time, now that we have Trek, I mean, is it any wonder that we just want more now? So
I know we're gonna get greedy soon.
I know. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw today and little pieces. The first thing I want to talk about are the fragments of Rios. Of course, he brings up the idea that his Captain Vandermeer does this about face that kind of breaks him in half, and then he sort of gets shuffled out of Starfleet after a period of time. What do you think about the idea that Rios is actually doing something that I think people tend to do? Is he's almost like shelving different emotions that he feels, and then he makes them kind of into himself, and then he kind of, notice how he is so abusive, and he kind of attacks elements of himself over and over and over again. I don't know. Do you think that this is Rios really and ultimately blaming himself for not doing something better in that moment? Or do you think this is kind of more something that manifests from grief?
He's definitely compartmentalizing his feelings. I kind of wonder if the different holographic versions of him, he actually was able to unload parts of his memory or parts of his feelings just to kind of shed it. I doubt that as a thing, but it kind of feels like maybe that was where he was kind of trying to go with it, by having such different characters around to talk to that would maybe keep him from self-reflecting on something that he probably still doesn't know how he feels about it. I mean, this is a character that he considered a father-like, and to have such a sharp turn in the way that man behaved in the whole situation. I mean, how do you just kind of move on from that?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is he has no pips, but a lot of problems. And,
exactly.
You know, you talking about him compartmentalizing and maybe almost downloading bits of his memory into this program. I actually don't think that's necessarily that far off, because where does he keep all of his memories? In a box. And then he's got another box, and it's a box of cigars that has everything. And notice what he's always chewing or smoking. Right. He's always got a cigar in his mouth. And at first I was like, that's got to be something, but it's sort of maybe like a new take on Freud, in the sense that I don't think he's got the same sort of baggage that a psychoanalyst would have in this response. But I think as he smokes cigars, as he chews on a cigar, I think that's his way of dealing with those ghosts that he's put in little boxes around the ship. That's a neat insight you have on that.
That's what I really like about this show, is that all the characters are so much more relatable than the characters that we saw in TNG and the original series. People have nervous tics. People have pasts. People have issues with substance abuse. It's very realistic, and I think it brings in a lot more fans, because they can maybe relate to characters a bit more than they could before.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we can see ourselves in a lot of these different pieces. Like when Rios has clearly sort of divided his consciousness up into several different spaces. What you get almost immediately is for me is a thought that, wow, like, yeah, I've gone through these things before. I've managed to kind of argue and have problems with myself and be angry and all that sort of stuff. So I think that Rios's response to this isn't necessarily one of like unhealth. I think it's a matter that he's sort of coping in the moment, but the longer he uses it, the worse it's going to get, the more this is going to become a crutch.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So let's see what some folks have to say here on that. Aren still thinks that Rios is a hologram. I don't know anymore. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Do you think he's a hologram, Sarah?
Sorry, who?
Rios.
No, I don't.
Not yet?
I don't know, actually.
At the start, I did. At the start, I was like, Rios has got to be a hologram. But now I'm like, not terribly sure.
Yeah. That's a good one. I think I'd be surprised if that was the case, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out. So the other little piece here that I wanted to talk about was the concept of Zen, and what Jurati asks Soji when she winds up kind of having her kind of return back into the world of the living and everything. I think my sorry, I'm just getting a message here. I think my internet's still a touch sketchy. Anyways, the idea that Jurati asks her some very simple questions. She says, "Do you eat? What do you do when you're hungry? What do you do when you're sad?" And it comes from a Zen saying that, like, how do you properly practice Zen? And ultimately what is said is eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, sleep when you're tired. All of those kinds of things are what makes a person a Zen master, because what you're doing is you're basically caring for yourself, and you're not being something greater than what you really are. And so I think that was a really interesting and entertaining kind of way of looking at it. The actual Zen koan I have here, it says, someone asked a Zen master, how do you practice Zen? The master said, when you are hungry, eat. When you are tired, sleep. Isn't that the way anyone does it anyway? Is what the student said. And the master replied, no. Most people entertain 1,000 desires when they eat and scheme over 1,000 plans when they sleep. In other words, don't take life so seriously and just be yourself. And I find that's kind of neat in the sense of, like, what makes us sentient. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on what makes someone, like, do you think Soji should be just considered a person? It's the question she continuously asks Jurati. What do you say, Sarah?
Oh, that was such a great scene between those two actresses. Alison Pill is knocking it out of the park, in my opinion, with this character, Agnes. I'm a very scientific-based person myself, with my thoughts on a lot of things in the world. And I think that if I was in that position, I would say she's not a person. I don't, because of the technicality of the fact that she is synthetic. But that's totally my opinion. And I could very much, I would love to argue with people and debate about it, because it's such a good topic.
Well, let's argue and debate about it. I think she is a person. I
Okay.
think that she actually has the fact that she is capable of having emotional reactions to things. I think that's the point here, is to bring up the idea that Steven Pinker, when he talks about the human brain, he says that it's basically a series of modular organs that work in sequence with one another to help us process the world around us. I mean, think about it. The brain is the organ that named itself. And in that respect, we are basically, according to most neurological scientists and most psychoanalysts, robots with agency. Like we have a lizard brain that basically makes our heart beat and make us react to stimuli. And the more freaked out and upset we get, like right now when people are panic buying toilet paper, we're not thinking with this part of our brain, with our prefrontal cortex. We're actually thinking with the fight or flight. What are we going to do? Oh my God, this kind of thing. And in that respect, our ability to act in a way that would be considered rational or sentient actually kind of backs off a bit, and we start becoming more instinctive. And I think with regard to the way, if some kind of artificial life was to pass that threshold and be able to understand that what it was doing it was morally good, but not morally obligatory, as was mentioned in 2009 Star Trek, I think that by itself defines sentience. What do you say to that?
Well, amazing. No, I mean, a lot of this is just my opinion from watching a TV show. Now, if I was Agnes and I was there with this character, that could be a whole other reaction, right? I'm a person who still can barely figure out how to use my phone. So technology, I don't want it getting any smarter, because I can't keep up with it already. So the last thing I need is it just like locking me in my house and taking control.
Yeah, well, speaking of control, I do think that I wonder if there's going to be a tie-in somehow to Discovery Season 2 and Picard, that something is up there. And I mean, I guess like some people said at the start that maybe not, that wouldn't necessarily be a thing. But just the way they're kind of doing this whole, the end is the synths and everything. I wonder if there's going to be some kind of question. So let's pop through a couple of comments here and see what folks are saying here. Doodly doo. Here we are. Becky 20 Tenable. I loved the scene because it reminds me how people with disabilities are treated. Soji is different. That's absolutely right. My stepdad took good care of him, but my brother Kent, who sadly passed away at the beginning of this year, grew up with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, very severe. And yeah, I mean, the way he was treated, the way people would talk around him, changed quite a bit. And I don't think it was necessarily people not recognizing his sentience, but maybe not understanding the way he communicated. I do think that there is a lot of talk about types of disabilities in this TV show, and I appreciate the way they're approaching mental disability in a lot of cases. Let's see what else we got going on here. Christina says humans are a different kind of machine. That's what Picard said in The Measure of a Man. Yeah, I mean, he did mention this, and maybe to some degree, maybe the entire series of Picard is like a retread of Measure of a Man. I mean, all the characters are present.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
See, this is why I do this show. I mean, like, I'm meaningless. It's the focus on the comments.
Well, and all this discussion of Measure of a Man has me pretty much positive that was a see it. So now I'm going to have to make sure that I watch it on my own time, because I'm realizing now I'm missing some really good episodes by doing these rewatches.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the good part is if you ever like do like a retread after going through all of the skip-its, and then you hit all of like the emphatic see-its, you're gonna have a good time. That's totally that's a good way. Let's see here. Arend says he might not have needed them at all. What would it matter to be a holo? Would it matter to a holo? Yeah. Why would Rios need all of these different holograms? Absolutely. Adam Sanders says humans are the most imperfect of machines. I think that is maybe another piece here, is the blending of art and science coming together. And I think there's a bit of a statement happening here. I mean, back in the old days, biologists were called natural philosophers. I think scientists themselves were called natural philosophers. And I think the current like standard model of science has gotten us to the moon and back and further in terms of what we can understand. I do think that to some degree there needs to be an art to science. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's because I'm in school all the time and I kind of see that blend. I don't know, but do you see an art to science as well?
Yeah, it's a Fibonacci sequence.
Right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful.
And if anyone doesn't know, the Fibonacci sequence is basically a series of spiraling mathematical equations that you can see in, like, if you looked at an acorn, or if you looked at the way a tree sprouts its leaves, or if you look at the way flower petals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's embedded within us. I mean, if you really think about it, the Fibonacci sequence works in a strand of DNA.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. Let's see what Jackie has to say. Nice to see you, Jackie. A person is a being that has certain capacities or attributes such as reason, morality, consciousness, or self-consciousness. She is self-aware, thinks, and therefore she is. Well, I mean, that's the Cartesian argument. I think, therefore I am. I don't know. I mean, does that work in the sense of, like, should we be nicer to the trees we cut down?
That's a good question. Because
they kind of think, they can move around like telephone poles and stuff like that, and they're clearly assessing the world around them. I don't know, this has some implications for me, but let's move on to the next little piece here. And I've moved there we are. So the perfect thing is imperfect. Perfection is dangerous. I often wonder if sometimes people always looking to make their lives exceptionally perfect or exceptionally the way we want it to be is maybe almost like a recipe for disaster. I don't know about you, Sarah, but being an adult has basically been just like a reminder that not everything is always going to go your way, and sometimes it kind of rains on us all and poop happens, and sometimes you just got to be the best you've got to be. I don't know, is maybe this series trying to do that as well? It's trying to comfort us through hard times.
I think so. I mean, it's such a different vibe than anything we've ever seen Captain Picard in before. And if I am correct in my remembering this, Patrick Stewart himself, when he read it and he kind of figured the tone of the show, it was what sold him on coming back. Yeah, it's darker, but I like it. And I know that this is a huge hot topic for a lot of people. They don't like the swearing. They don't like the gore. I do. That's totally my kind of thing. I love it, but I can really appreciate those that are finding it not to be what they're wanting.
Yeah, I can too. I guess for me, maybe it's just because instead of being ripped from the headlines, our headlines are almost kind of being ripped from the things that are happening. I mean, we think of the situation that we're in now, where there's a deep amount of uncertainty and fear. And I think all we want is a comforting voice to tell us that everything is going to be okay. And isn't it good that Space Dad is back to tell us everything is going to be okay?
Right.
And I mean, think about like what would happen on the bridge of the Enterprise if something like this would happen, right? I mean, they would all have to work together to make it work and to make things happen and to make people know that if everyone does their job and everyone does their thing, we're going to be okay. We have to trust one another, I think, ultimately. And yeah, it's a little bit on the nose right now, but I don't know. Did you find like did you I'm going to ask, did you watch much Star Trek as a kid?
Yeah, I did. I watched TNG like repeatedly, Deep Space Nine, a little bit of Voyager. So, between the years of like 1990 and 1996 was when I was like really into it, in those awkward preteen and teen years. Never really watched much TOS. I'm still thinking that might be something I'll have to do.
Yeah. So did you find that like Picard kind of helped with making like just kind of making sense of the world and stuff like that? Or am I kind of going off in the wrong direction here?
No, I think you're making a really good point. I don't know if Picard was that voice for me so much. Looking back on my memories of when I was a kid, I really, as a little girl, I really looked up to the Dr. Crusher and the Troy and like the female characters, Kira, Dax. So when it comes to Picard and a lot of those and Cisco, I didn't have that much of a connection to them. I liked them. I think maybe I saw them more in that authoritative thing where it's like, keep that safe distance. I always had a real good, thing for keeping my distance from the authority of the scary people who are in charge. I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm not here. But like some of the characters that had that warmth, I found maybe a little bit more less intimidating.
Yeah, and I mean, Picard does come off as cold quite a bit in TNG from time to time. Yeah, and yeah, that kind of austere front gets challenged quite a bit. And I think this is maybe where Picard almost becomes a little more perfect in his imperfection. Like when he tries to come back and do exactly what he did before, he's tripping on his shoelaces for the first 3 episodes and getting yelled at by people pretty much the entire way through, and he's still getting sworn at. So.
Well, and in this episode alone, when he's sitting down talking to Soji about Data, because she's asking, I mean, this is more emotion that we've seen from him in a long time. And I think that shows how much he's changed, is the fact that he can talk about it now, about how he felt about Data and how he wanted to know how Data felt about him.
Yeah, and that conversation between him and Soji, I think actually is the piece that I want to kind of lean in on this here is the fact that Soji says something really important, is how would you want Data to remember you if you were gone? And that for me just spun everything on its head. I really appreciated that. I mean, I don't know. Did you stop and think like, I wonder what do I want people to think of me? Like if I actually ended up in the ditch last week, I was driving regular speed. I wasn't speeding actually or anything. And I got cut off and I did like 2 full like plies on the icy highway. And I went straight into the ditch sideways. And I sat there for a second thinking like, wow, if another car was there, I'd be dead. Like that would have been it. Yeah. Like I would have been rolled and that would have been that. But I thought like, when this piece came forward, I was like, man, I wonder what people would think of me. And I know that may be a little bit of a dark conversation for the folks listening, but I guess it resonated with me in the sense that if we started thinking about that a little bit more and started thinking about what kind of impression we make out there and genuineness that we can have towards one another, rather than always trying to put up that austere front, I guess. Let's see here. So Becky 20 Tenable says, okay, I love the fact that Picard said that he, like Data, had trouble expressing his emotion. And yeah, Soji's questions to Picard. There's something there. I think there's something in that whole conversation where you start realizing that maybe Picard's more of a fake person too than he thinks. I don't know.
I feel like that was a test that she administered there.
You think?
I think so. I think she's worrying more about Data than she's letting on.
Okay.
And so knowing what the answer is, like when she said that he loved you, I just feel like that maybe there's a little bit more that she's discovering, that maybe she's kept close to the chest.
That's an interesting way of putting it too. And she starts eating after that as well.
Yeah, what were they having?
Um,
Not French fries and peppermint ice cream. That came later.
Dry white is what Dan Davidson is shouting at us right now. So that's a thing.
Yeah, I'm drinking juice. Sorry.
I'm drinking chamomile tea. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I got cranberry juice and water.
Yeah. Debbie says that I found the statement of Picard's very relatable. I disagree that he is a fake person, though. Yeah, live television makes me not say the right things always exactly. I don't know if he's a fake person. It's that it's that front, right?
Yeah.
It's that front he was trying to put up, and he was trying to be someone else. And I think Troy is the one who kind of leaned him in the right direction, as Jackie says, with Troy with a heart.
Yeah. Well, I think especially because of the role that Picard played. I mean, people who are in a position of authority sometimes have that personality that keeps them distancing. I see it in government with people who are at really high levels, and it's that professionalism, it's that wall. And him as a captain of a ship, I mean, he took it there and he held true to it.
Yeah. And he doesn't have to be anymore. And I think that's the best part.
Yeah.
Like when he sits down at the controls and he's like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I loved that. That was so good. Yeah.
So the last little bit here is being driven by fear, the Zhat Vash and their burden bearing that they're doing. So they get this whole inside track that if they make too much synth life, then the world's going to blow up or something. And sure. Great. That's good. But I also wonder to some degree, like, why on earth weren't they like being like, hey, everyone, you need to come here and look at this right now because this is a big, big problem. Instead, they're like, shh, we'll deal with it ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have a question about that too.
Yeah.
In case I missed something or I didn't read it right. But when they were explaining at the end of the episode a bit more about what the situation was, and that when you touch it, you see this vision of what happened thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands years ago. Did they imply, or did Agnes imply that when they hit that threshold and crossed the line, something showed up, like a species, or that they crossed a line and what they had created crossed the line too? I wasn't sure if it was both or one or the other. Or...
Yeah, I don't know. And that's like the scary is like what if it is like kind of like some kind of universal like
greeting call.
Yeah, or like an umpire who's like, no, you can't do that. Like, who knows, right? And it is that Zephyr Cochrane thing that like we won't contact you. It's like the prime directive from hell in some case, where like. But then again, I think that's one of our biggest fears is that if artificial intelligence becomes by any order of magnitude smarter than us, then that could wipe that. I mean, they could just see us as irrelevant, and they could just wipe us out, much like Control tries to in season 2 or season 3 of Discovery, right? Or season 2 of Discovery.
Yeah, I like this idea of this like species out there somewhere that's watching for this. It kind of makes me think of, I'm not gonna remember the name, but the species that the Borg designates with a number because they were from a different realm of existence, and they would just kind of rip open and come through. So like, what if that's something that's like watching? Or... And
the Borg did a lot to piss them off. Yes. So I'm almost wondering if maybe that could be. And I've got my numbers wrong right now. So if anyone in the comment land wants to give me the correct numbers for the designation that Borg gave them, but they're from fluidic space and they are freaking terrifying.
Yes.
A mix between like Jar Jar Binks and a xenomorph.
It's the mixture nobody asked for.
Arend, thank you very much. Yes, species 8472.
8472. Yes.
And Debbie also brought that up, species 8472. Exactly. And boom. I would not be surprised. I also wonder if there's an Iconian. This is getting into a bit of Stargazer stuff. I wonder if there's an Iconian connection to this as well, especially considering they used what was, like, the way they say like an ancient civilization got really advanced, and that's the only real ancient civilization that I can really think of that had anything to do with that.
Yeah, it was a great opening scene. It was super scary.
Yeah, it was gross and scary. And I mean, I guess it kind of lines up the Zhat Vash as not necessarily bad guys, but bad guys who think right. They think they're protecting the end. They might
they'd be a lot less. Yeah, they'd be a lot less bad guys had they kind of told people about what was going on. But because they're keeping that elementary mystery, it makes them that much more scary.
Exactly. Well, let's take a pause for a second and talk about something that is never hard to talk about, and that is fan sets. So before we do continue, of course, we would be remiss if we did not bring up our sponsors and Trek family at Fansets. There's so many ways to express your fandom these days. So if you're looking for artistry, care, and attention to detail, just basically a friendly group of people who are doing good work, definitely you should check. I have a number of their pins that I've gotten both at convention and just through ordering them online and everything like that. And I've never been disappointed. There's new pins for Picard coming as well. We've got Soji, Dr. Girardi, Raffi, Picard, Rios. And we just found out, this was a couple of weeks ago, that there's going to be episode pins coming out as well. So that's pretty great. So if you find yourself trotting around and you're not necessarily, you're looking maybe for a gift for someone who doesn't necessarily like Star Trek specifically, I mean, nobody's perfect. They do actually have a number of different genres and different franchises, Harry Potter to Alien, DC, offer to Picard listeners, and this work of their products online or in their store. Listeners to Fansets, listeners to Picard can get a 15% discount code order while Picard season 1 is on. Another 2 from the next release. So Picard Live, that is PIC.
I think Barry was trying to tell everybody about the Picard discount. Picard Live to get 15% off. All caps.
Yes,
Maybe.
It seems our... Oh, there's one of our Canadian... There he is.
Come back.
Your internet over the line is a little sketchy today.
Oh.
You back, Barry?
I might be back. Nope.
Oh.
I hear your audio.
Here I am.
Yay!
Yay! I'm back.
Welcome
Where did I
back.
get to, everybody? Basically, Fansets rocks, and there's Janeway. Look at that, and she wears the captain's uniform a lot better than me. Much better. But what can I say? So let's get on to the Stargazer. I think she's wonderful. So let's get on to the Stargazer, where we are going to be looking at some of the things that we might be lying in store for us coming forward in the last 2 episodes. I still can't believe there's only 2 episodes left.
Nope. Nope. Don't say it. It's not happening. I'm waiting for a random surprise to be unleashed upon the internet where it's like, surprise, there's going to be 45,000 more. It's going to be a soap opera, one every day.
Oh, man. The bold and the beautiful in space. So I think the first thing I want to talk about in the Stargazer is 7 of 9 and her absolute badassery. Yes, queen. So first of all, her getting into the queen chamber and loading up, and I don't know, there was something maternal in her.
Yes, there was. There was something maternal in her.
This was the first time I ever felt really, really bad watching a bunch of Borg die. I was like, it was terrible.
Right? It was, I was not expecting that reaction, but when those doors opened and they just got sucked out into space, I was like, what? Those could all be potential spin-off shows about that person becoming who they were again, and you're ripping it right out of my hands. So, well,
one thing that I do have to say she did bring up that I think is important for us to consider is when Elnor says like if you get this power, what happens? And she's basically like, this could get out of control and I might not want to give up my power. And I think about that idea that she is capable of looking directly at herself and who she is and realize that once given that type of absolute power, and for me, that's a sign of extremely, extremely good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts
the fact that
on
she used her real name? Yeah, using her real name at the end to kind of keep that, I want to say it's almost like a tethering between the two existences. It's like having a safe word in a way of like, if I start wanting to move over to this dark side, I've got the name. That reminds me of who I am and the mission I have. And then that's kind of the way I looked at it. And then Elnor just standing in the corner like, you're not going to assimilate me now, are you? That was so fun. I think his character is such a good little bit of comedy relief in some of those dark episodes.
he basically a little chorus to just sort of be us, right? He sort of sits on Seven of Nine's shoulders, or like her one shoulder, and kind of watches the whole time, and kind of adds these little pieces in. Like his character really isn't given a heck of a lot to do, and he really makes the most of it. I really enjoyed his play off that, because that would be my first question, is like, I am now standing next to Borg Queen. Usually this doesn't end well.
No, exactly.
But
it was a really cool scene, just in general. The special effects, the tone, the way it was filmed, the cinematography of it, all of it, it just came together to be such a really good scene, and a great deep dive into kind of where Annika / Seven of Nine is in her headspace and how much she's changed and grown. And we lost. Oh, there he goes. He's frozen in space.
Yeah.
He's got the carbonite.
Yeah, looks like we lost him again.
Well, that's fine. He'll come back when he comes back. I can't pull up what people were thinking, what they have to say about the whole scene, but are we able to read some of the viewers' comments?
So, here he comes.
Oh.
Here you go. Previous episodes did a great job of showing the Borg as victims that made the scene heartbreaking when they expelled in space.
Totally agree. Yeah. Especially, every episode where you're starting to see these XBs, they're people that are victims that you want to see have a chance at the life that they maybe once had, or didn't even have a chance to have if they were assimilated at a very young age. So,
I think I mentioned that before the show, that watching them fly out was like every character flying out was a redemption that was lost for each one of the XBs.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Barry. Nope.
But you know what? Actually, it was like minus 30. It's going to get up to like -3. So for you, Merkin,
wait, did you say Americans?
Would be like
Americans.
Yeah, you Americans.
Starts with an M, apparently.
Like, we're getting up into like the mid-20s, and we were down in like with the way the ground is shifting, it's causing. So a frustrating circumstance. But I actually, Dan, your point was exactly.
It's nice and sunny on the island.
I know. I should move. Anyways, so Dan actually brought something that I think is really, really important by saying that every Borg that was lost was a potential redemption that was lost.
Yeah, it's well said.
And that's really interesting. I like that point. And Becky 20 Tenable says the series did a good job of humanizing the villain. 7 of 9 is getting a redemption arc as well. Yeah, everyone's getting their redemption throughout this, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm gonna lose my internet, I'm gonna keep on trucking through the pieces here. The last Soji Roy, and is going to be this destroyer that they think.
God. I don't know. I think that she doesn't know. I think that with Soji learning so much about herself so fast, I think that there's a chance that there could be a little bit of unpredictability or unable to predict what she's capable of. I think when she slammed her hand down on that table, I think she even probably startled herself. So I think she wants to be good, but
I think so too.
Threatened,
and
people dying.
I think she has the choice, and I think being sentient, I think she is going to make that choice. Raffi, I think, is going to solve this puzzle, and probably to her own destruction. And
yeah. Oh, I want to know what your point was, but you froze again.
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep myself in stream here so we can have at least bouncing conversation between two of us.
I wanted to know what's going to happen with. Oop.
Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say, I didn't know what his point was going to be about Raji, so I was going to move on to another character, but I think he might be back.
I am. I'll say it really quick before I disappear again. Boy, it's been a rough night. Buffy basically is going to solve the puzzle, but the way she solves it is through her own destruction somehow, and it's making me preemptively sad.
Well, if she keeps that program in line so she can't get her alcohol, we know that she'll be at least sober when she's coming forward with all these things. Brilliant on her part to have set that security system up. I love that. I'm concerned about Agnes.
Yeah. What do you
When
think?
she said, I want to commit suicide every single day, I worry that is a bit of a warning to the viewers that could be something that happens. Maybe not her. I mean, there could be possibly other people who get that flash of what she saw and they can't handle it. It was such a sobering moment. And I was like, oh God, like,
yeah,
not ready for that.
I wonder if she's going to not be able to unsee what has been seen in a lot of cases there. And yeah. Thing up here, Danger Man number 5. Danger Man 5 says, "Is there a temporal
anomaly is affecting the stream? It seems."
That was good timing,
especially when he's trying to say there's a temporal anomaly. So that makes it interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's Alberta. I mean, come on. It's not like it is in BC. I mean, they're frozen solid tundra.
See, there he goes. He's reloading. So
bye, Barry.
So his next line here is that Raffi will solve the puzzle. So,
and I'm back.
And he's back again. Go ahead and share what you were thinking about this. Raffi solved the puzzle.
Yeah. So she's got the conspiratorial mind. She's putting everything together. Everything's kind of clicking back, and I think she's going to realize that she can solve it, but it'll come at her own destruction.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, Barry.
Sure.
What do you think about Beautiful Flower as a name?
I think it's lame. Give all these pretty orchid names to. They could have called them something cool like Petunia, right?
But do you think it has a reason behind it? Like maybe because it was the first one, so it was
just
I don't know.
Not to skip a little bit, but did you notice that in the preview, the next one, the weapons platforms kind of look like a flower?
Oh, I didn't see the preview for the next episode.
So my thought is maybe the defensive might have artificial intelligence based on what they put in whatever that guy was that from the past. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That is. I love our commenters have had to say here because they're typically, like I say, lighting the world on fire here. Debbie says, "Does anyone actually?" Clancy is sending a squadron.
What the statement was. Yep. So go ahead and repeat that line because you broke up there, Barry.
She said, Debbie said that, does anyone think that Clancy is sending a squadron? I feel like
I think she is. She was swearing. She was feeling some passion in that moment. So she probably just wanted to shut him up so she could tell him some good news.
Well, do you think she knows or do you think she's being manipulated?
I think she's being manipulated.
So maybe she's not siding with O as much as she's being manipulated into.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's.
And like O is such a confusing character now too, because like, is it Narissa? Was that her name?
Yeah, Narissa.
Yeah, like here we go thinking that this plant in Starfleet who's this horrible person, but now we realize that she's actually trying to do something really good. So that makes what an episode. I tell you, I don't even know what to think anymore.
Well, I think
I need a good yeah.
I think if she does tell she's going to get killed. I think that's going to be the way it goes there.
Yeah. Oh.
Well,
I'm looking at my notes right now. So
let's go into some supplementals here, and maybe we can finish off the episode just with my internet popping in and out and everything. Obviously, you and Dan, Sarah, have to keeping that going, and everyone on the
We're trying. I was in an improv troupe for about 4 months when I was 21 years old, so I got this.
I do this all the time with Trek Geeks Game Night. I stumble a little bit more as I try to remember my storylines, but this is not so bad.
Yeah, at least I know what I'm talking about because I had to watch this episode again to make sure I was like, what happened?
So,
All right.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
My goodness, I am sorry, guys. This is crazy and fun, and it's live. It's live television, right? That's the best part about it. Is on live.
I feel like
television,
you need like a really good like little piece of classical music that you can do every time you're coming back in. So it's like this epic like moment.
Dun, 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 dun. Well, first, I just wanted to talk a bit about Rios and his accents. The fact that we're capable of seeing so many different representations, I think, is fantastic. Also, the actor, and the name escapes me, he actually played Camilo Cienfuego in a really good rendition of Che. He's also been in so many different, the acting talent from John DeLarco to I forget her first name but last name Pill.
Allison. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was Santiago. No,
his last name Santiago.
Santiago Cabrera is the name.
Santiago Cabrera. Yeah, very, very good. Just acting, and of course he sings a Puerto Rican ship back, which I think
totally
con leche, right?
It makes me want to know a little bit more. I keep feeling like I'm interrupting you because you keep pausing a little bit.
We're lagging.
We're lagging. I was going to say that with the way that that's set up with those different holograms on the ship, it makes me wonder how far has that technology changed? Because when they say that when he what was the word that they used for self-scanned himself by accident? That's kind of a cool thing I'd never heard of before. Maybe I'm wrong and I missed it somewhere, but
no, you're absolutely right. And the fact that he's able to completely become these different people who all have like elements of each other, right? There's like the more macho version. There's kind of the more like when the navigation hologram gets kissed, he just sort of touches his cheeks like, oh my goodness. I don't know. There's little bits of like the boy of Rios, and then there's like the gruff kind of I don't give a crap kind of Emmett, and
there's the close talker.
Yeah, I don't like the hospitality hologram at all. He's a mouth breather. Bugs me.
If anyone should not be the close talker, it's the hospitality guy.
Right? Ugh.
Yeah, and then the engineering guy has the Scottish accent.
That's a bit of fan service, eh?
Mm-hmm. I caught that.
Yeah, I like his Glaswegian accent. Actually, it's a pretty strong one. He says Ken for no a lot, and if you don't have any Scottish friends, when they're like, "Oh yeah, I ken him, he's back," it's like I know him from a while ago. So that was an entertaining little chunk. But I think the big piece here is what we see is for everyone's kind of Humpty Dumpty in this, and they've all had a great fall at some point, and they're all picking themselves back up, and they're all putting themselves back together, and. I think that's really the ultimate piece of this is no matter how much things fall apart, we can always put ourselves back together. Even if my internet falls apart, that's what you and Dan are here for, to put my show back together. And you've done a fine job of it.
It's a good test.
Let's see what Becky 20 Tenable says here. Okay, with all these advanced holograms, why would anyone socialize now? This would be the ultimate social distancing.
Yeah, totally. I would not want them to be in versions of me. Are you kidding me? Oh God.
Ooh, I can only deal with one of me.
It'd be horrifying.
I'd pick more interesting people pretty much across the board.
Have like my. Are you?
You froze actually that time.
I was gonna say, yeah, that was you this time.
Canadian internet all the way around. I think we're being hacked.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, this is what's happening.
I'm honored.
The last little piece here. Yeah, you should be. It's a big and entertaining world we live in with internet bizarreness. Actually, maybe there's just so many people on the internet. All the taps have been turned on, and so it's just not flowing right.
Yeah, everyone's home.
I always like to think of. Yeah, exactly. So
next time, if this happens, we should all go like this at the same time. That would be perfect.
Like that. And for those of you listening, we've all bopped our heads. So next week on Picard Live, we're going to be considering the penultimate episode of Star Trek's Picard first season, titled in Arcadia Ago Part 1. And following an unconventional, dangerous transit, Picard and his crew finally arrive at Soji's homeworld, Coppelius. However, with Romulan warbirds on their tail, their arrival only brings greater about the place. So I think this is an interesting kind of end here that we're going to end up moving from a lot of things happening at once. What do you guys say? Are we going to basically see a tumble?
Not sure what that question was, but
I'm not sure either. I think he's I'll think that we saw in the preview that we're going to lose, or the ship's going to come down a little bit. So I wonder if they're prepping for a replacement ship for next season.
I didn't see the preview for the next episode, so this is exciting to me to hear about this.
Well, I mean, isn't a Star Trek trope that every time we get at the end of a movie or end of a series, we start having issues with the ships and maybe lose them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, given all that happened in the episode. No, I was going to say, given all that happened in the episode, I really liked how they transported, but that I love that ending of the conversation between Rios and Picard. Like, she took my ship over. Shouldn't we be scared? And just Picard's take on it about it's different times. We're different people. We're curious. It kind of gave me a little glimmer of hope, but then it's 2 episodes, so it's going to be action packed. It's going to be big.
I figure so. I'm figuring the last 2 episodes for this season is going to wrap some stuff up. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, you kind of wonder with the way they've already approved or already set up for season 2, you kind of wonder what kind of things they're going to set up to transition into season 2 being the end of this season type of thing, where their transition is going to be in the final 2 episodes. Are they going to, are we going to lose characters, gain characters? Are we going to bring on long-term crew characters? We're supposedly we have a fleet coming, so maybe that's something to look at. Maybe we bring in a ship or something like that. He takes over. Who knows?
Yeah,
I hope Riker is leading the Armada.
Which Riker?
Oh yeah, right. Maybe it's Tom.
Oh my god! Out of nowhere.
He got done with his prison term and turned his ways around.
It's been Tom this whole time, and Troy had no idea.
Oh.
Thanks.
There's something for you.
Oh man,
I'm curious to see. You messed up. I'm curious to see if with what we're learning about and their whole and the backlash. I'm curious about that side of it.
We're going to get you to repeat that. You froze up on us this time. Canadian internet.
I've never had internet problems. This is embarrassing. Oh, I was just going to say that I'm curious to see how much of a political issue is.
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
going.
Curious about the politics of it. Is Starfleet going to be found to have been lying or covering up? And when they find out what O is doing, I'm just curious about that side of things. Just, is it all going to crumble?
I wonder if O is going to have her uppance come through Girardi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keep the shades on, lady. Play it cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope Girardi knows karate or something like that. I've been waiting to use that pun.
Girardi karate.
Yeah, Girardi karate. Yeah. I know you like that, Dan.
I love it.
I know you like that.
This is why I'm generally not on the camera.
Lean into that one. Lean in.
That's
well, with everything kind of popping on and off, I think we're gonna call her an episode. This Sarah, you've been fantastic, and you've definitely been the greatest trooper of any one of the guests I've had so far, because we've had to wade through the mucky ground that is Canadian internet to still put on, I think, a very fantastic show with some fantastic discussion, both from you, Dan, and from our commenters.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, For more Trek discussion, check out the other podcasts on the Trek Geeks Network. You can find them all around Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or even TrekGeeks.com. And the latest Rewind is coming out right away, too. So, Sarah, you should tell us about what you're talking about in the next episode of Rewind.
Yes, I do believe it will be dropping on Thursday. And in this one, Haley and I revisited that fantastic holodeck episode, The Big Goodbye. Do we say see it? Do we say skip it? Yeah. Step on it.
I am excited to see what you guys have to say because I think this is a see it episode. Dan and Bill are wrong. Oh, something has frozen.
Yep, she did.
I think
agree
Sarah
with you.
froze.
I enjoyed the episode, and I'm looking forward to her their intake or their
all right. On that
take on
note,
the show.
Yeah, Sarah, repeat yourself. What did you say?
I don't remember. Where was I? Where did you lose me at?
I lost you at whether or not you think it's a see it or a skip it, or what we think, and thinking that Dan and Bill are wrong.
Oh, Dan and Bill are wrong. That's just all that needs to be said, really.
Is that all you
have
guys...
a listen. We have a good laugh.
Good. Is that all you guys really say on the show? Is you just be like, "Hi, this is Sarah and Haley. Welcome to Trek Rewind," and where we prove Dan and Bill wrong.
You know what? That would be for a really quick and easy to edit type of recording, if you ask me. But no, we get into some other stuff on this one. We're talking about our top 10 favorite episodes of all time. And then I made the mistake of asking the listeners what we should broach on. So there's some good humor on some fan fiction topic that's it's pretty funny. So I cried laughing while recording.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to listening to it myself. So just so you know, if you can't attend the live stream, especially with all the bumpins and the jumpins that are happening with the internet here, fret not. You can download the audio version of the podcast the next day. Just search for Trek Geeks Picard Live on your favorite podcasting platform. Of course, we are always happy to have the fine folks at 5 Year Mission giving us our shows. And then, of course, there is Sarah with the man himself, the cardboard cutout of Sir Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. So with that, just chilling like a villain, but not a villain, unless he's Locutus.
No, he's not.
Well, with that, we thank you everyone for coming on and listening. It's been wonderful. And I do like the idea of Kirk Schwinn saying that a new drinking game, every time the internet freezes, take a shot. You'd be pretty drunk this episode. So if anyone did, well, don't make sure you get a ride home. Yeah, be safe. Get a ride home. Drink some water. Get good sleep.
That'll kill the germs, though.
Absolutely, yeah, that'll kill it. Well, if you are dealing with the issues of the world right now, know that Star Wars is good, but Star Trek is your friend. I was going to make a Star Wars comment after that. I was going to say what I was originally going to say for my script that I wrote is Star Trek will make you feel great, and Star Wars will do all right. But if you're going to binge on anything, you've got hours and hundreds of hours of Star Trek to watch on your various platforms. So do so. And I think that some podcasting output's going to probably go up quite high as some podcasters end up having to spend time in their household.
There you go. Well said.
All right. Well, good night, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next week with better internet, I promise. Live long and prosper.